Guys, I've got some bad news. Matt died in a fucking unfortunate smelting accident. And I'm going to have to do the podcast by myself now. So this is just the... I don't know. I guess we'll just call it the buddy shot. So anyway, we're going to start the podcast here, and holy shit. Oh my god. It's a ghost.
Scagnutty.
Is that you, Matt? Oh my god. He might be dead, but he's still here.
I've returned from the grave.
Well, that's good.
For Ghost Week.
Because
it's me, the ghost of Matt.
I think that I didn't have much to say without you, so I'm glad you're here.
I'm happy to be back.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, could you walk over there and turn the light on for us, Ghost Matt? Thank you, sir. That's very kind of you.
Ghosts are usually very helpful and friendly.
Except for the two that we're talking about tonight.
Only two?
Or one. So this is, as Matt said, Ghost Week.
Ghost Week.
Yeah. And what'd you think about this topic, man?
I'm super interested in ghosts.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a good week.
Do they spook you?
They used to.
Yeah.
Back before I learned that they weren't real.
Yeah, true. Anyway. Or are they? Oh! Shit. So, I guess let's just move on to our scariest topic, nerd news.
Nerd news.
You nerd. Okay.
Should I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
My nerd news
Spooky on.
is Captain Kirk is finally going to space.
Yeah, we watched the thing for this today.
You mean yesterday? What was that? Folks, we heard a ghost.
Yeah, what the fuck was that?
A ghost stubbed his toe in the next room.
Yeah, we're in a... where are we right now, Matt?
We're in the executive boardroom.
Yes.
Of the Buddy Shots at HQ.
Yeah. You've never seen it until today.
Yeah.
Oh. So I fucked up. Or did I? So, what were we saying?
Oh yeah, William Shatner.
Oh yeah, he went to space. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking all about it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. William Shatner's I would say a national treasure, but he's Canadian, so a Canadian treasure.
Right.
And it's awesome that he wanted and got to go to space.
Yeah.
Totally appropriate for Captain Kirk.
Right. To actually finally go to space.
Yeah, and so we just saw it happen, and when he landed, he was crying and said it was a super profound experience.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool stuff.
He landed on his fucking feet. Yeah, that was legit.
Good thing they didn't let Deanna Troi drive the spaceship, or she would have crashed it.
Yeah. She's like, they've given these to the kid, the blind dude. I'm like, Jesus. He's not a blind guy. I mean, I guess he is. But that doesn't mean he can't drive.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know this, but I guess Peter Jackson's making a Beatles documentary series.
Yes, that's going to be amazing.
The Beatles Get Back.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they released a 4-minute trailer for it. I haven't watched it yet, but I just saw this. I thought that's pretty cool because Peter Jackson, if anything, goes in excess of anything that he pretty much puts his mind to. So this will probably be
it's guaranteed to be amazing. Basically.
Yeah, the longest and most ridiculous Beatles documentary that you could ever want. And it has the support of everyone involved, which is nice. So the remaining people that are alive, at least.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Can't wait.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because, I think they're using some of Let It Be because that, the Let It Be movie has been unable to be seen for years and years for various reasons. So,
Yeah.
and I've never seen it. I've always wanted to. So this will be like that, but with more. I think.
I wonder why that was the case. Like, do you know why that is?
I'm not sure all the history behind it.
Yeah.
But like all their other movies have been released many times, except for Let It Be. So.
What about Help? Yeah.
Some may wish Help was never released. That was
was-
still pretty good.
I was released in hell.
Help! Help!
Help me! Okay, so we're gonna move on to our next segment. What do we like to call this one? Ghost Man.
Recommendation! Nation. Ding, ding, ding.
We're gonna have like someone in another room like come in here and beat our asses.
No way, this is the HQ, the inner sanctum.
That's true. There was no one else around. So what do you recommend to the nation?
This is a anti-recommendation, which we sometimes do,
Oh, okay.
for a game that was released in 2001 called Surfing H3O. Which was one of the, I think, a release title for PS2,
Mhm.
if not a release title, one of the earliest releases for the PlayStation 2.
Yes.
And it's a totally unplayable game that's garbage. And I remember getting it back in the day and being like, I can't play this. But on top of that, the best part is the title H3O,
Yeah.
because it's a nonsense title. It's so
Right.
stupid.
Why?
Like, why would they change it to H3O? Like they're trying to be more extreme.
Why don't you explain to the folks at home why H3O like isn't something that would make any sense?
Yeah, I mean it's a molecule. So H2O, is, as we all know, is water,
Mhm.
and H3O is a molecule that cannot exist in nature. And
You were telling me.
I think if it could exist
Yeah.
in nature, it would be a pure acid, and it's known as hydronium. I think I have all my facts straight there, but it's like it makes no sense that they call the game H3O. So stupid,
Yeah.
but funny.
That's something that you've always told me about. That
Yeah,
I
we've been
thought
joking
was
about it
funny.
for 20 years
Yeah.
now.
And it's finally come out on the podcast. So.
Yeah.
So I would like to recommend, and this kind of goes along with this week's topic, Sightings, the TV show, hosted by Tim White from back in the day. It's like a 90s TV show. It's a more paranormal extreme version of Unsolved Mysteries. Unsolved Mysteries got me started on like that kind of stuff, and then Sightings was kind of like the more out there version of that show. And the whole thing that's like awesome about that show is like that's where I heard of like one of our movies that we're going to talk about tonight, The Entity. So
You
yeah,
used to watch that all the time, right? Back in the day.
yeah, they actually had like a VHS that I still own, and that is called The Ghost Report. That's literally just like an hour of their most like out of control ghost encounters in the show, and like one of them is The Entity. One of them's actually like a house that was so haunted in like England that like 2 dogs died. Like one jumped out the window, and
What?
the other one like died
Fright?
trying to claw its way through a door.
Good lord.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that show is like really scary.
Yeah, I remember I used to. Now I can watch it like whenever, like because I've seen it so many times. But like back in the day, I used to like beg people to watch it with me so I could watch it again because I was too scared to watch it by myself. So, yeah, check it out. If you've never seen it, you might get a fright. You might get a fright tonight. Watching this podcast, you might get a fright, depending. So let's just move on to we have 2 weekly topics. We have both The Entity, which is a ghost film, and we have the Ghosts of Mars, which is a film with the ghosts in the title. So which one do you want to start with? Ghostly honors. Go to you.
I think maybe we should start with Ghosts of Mars because I have a feeling you have a lot of negative things to say. Maybe.
We'll see.
All right.
Let's start with it. Let me scroll down here. I just had these in the way.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so we're starting with Ghosts of Mars. Titled on screen is John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars. So this is kind of a big deal because we're big into John Carpenter, and he this is kind of like one of his last huge hurrahs on screen till now. I mean, he's involved with some other stuff, but he does a lot of music stuff now, which is cool too. But it's a science fiction action horror film written and directed and scored by John Carpenter, which he always used to do anyway. It was like that he would do everything. That's why his films are so great, because he had like a vision and would see it to the end. The film stars Natasha Henstridge, Ice Cube, Jason Statham, Pam Grier, Clea DuVall, Joanna Cassidy maybe. The film received negative reviews and earned $14 billion at the box office against the $28 million. Or wait, million. Yeah, I was like, wait, it made $14 billion on a $28 million.
Everyone knows Ghost of Mars is the biggest
blockbuster that's ever been screened or seen.
It was a huge bomb, basically ended his career.
Yeah,
like his career was trending down, and this was
the nail in the coffin. Sadly. But speaking of Screen Gems put out this film. It looks like, because the logo shows up.
So what are your thoughts on Ghost of Mars? Like, did you see it back when it first came out, or?
I can't remember. I don't think I saw when it first came out. No, honestly.
So this was one of, I hate to admit it, but like maybe 2 or 3 movies that I downloaded on like LimeWire or Kazaa or Napster or whatever.
What were the others?
Gone in 60 Seconds with Nick Cage, and that might have been it. I think. Exit Wounds, the Steven Seagal DMX movie with Tom Arnold. Like, those 3 movies from 2001. And, but I don't think I really was up to speed on John Carpenter at the time. Like, I'd seen The Thing.
Right.
And that's probably it.
Yeah.
So this was the movie and I loved Ghost of Mars, and I was like, John Carpenter, I got to see more of his movies. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And then here we are today.
Yeah. What did you think of, like, compared to his other films? Were you like, when you went back and saw the other ones, were you like, what?
It's like nothing stacks up to Ghost of Mars. I mean, it's not one of his. It's probably in the bottom half if I had to rank them, but I still really like it. But it's hard to say because I think all of his movies are like good to great. So I've just always had a soft spot in my heart for this movie, and watching it again, I still like it. I think it's awesome. It's a rad movie.
Yeah. I wouldn't go that far personally, but I thought it was a movie that definitely was of its time when I was watching it.
Oh, yeah. So,
I was like, this movie could not be made now, thank God.
So early 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember much about this movie until, like, I do remember, I think I watched it one other time. It's kind of in the same vein as Vampires for me, where, like, I've seen it, like, and, like, the time that I had seen it, it was very, like, don't remember a bunch about it. And, yeah. I don't know what to say. It was, like...
Moving on to The Entity.
Yeah. I mean, as far as, like, I don't really want to give my rating or, like, my whole thoughts until we go through the whole thing, and then I can kind of break it down at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say, like, this is a great movie, but I think it's, like... It has so much stuff in it that I like in movies. Like, I think the cast is awesome. There's tons of action. It looks cool. It's a cool looking movie. The score is sweet. Which some people would argue against that, and I understand. It's just a cool movie.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm not really going to say opinions about it till the end.
All right.
Well, I will, but it'll be, yeah. So, right off the bat, we've got, like, Outland shit here with Mars again.
I knew you'd have something to say about the...
Well, it wasn't... It was just kind of weird because we had already watched this... We had watched Outland, like, months and months... Like, a year ago, probably, at this point, maybe. But it's the same kind of thing where at the beginning they have, like, a bunch of stats, but at least here there's, like... people talking and other things. So it's like, it's the year 2176 on Mars. They're 84% complete through, like, terraforming Mars. There's a population of 640,000 colonists. It's very specific. Well, down to like the fucking zeros. Society is a matriarch society. Earth law enforcement by Mars police force. So that's kind of like all the exposition that you get at the beginning.
Society, matriarchal.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, sounds good. Which is, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so we start out the movie and like it's kind of gone. It goes in a like reverse telling of what happened.
Yeah, it's like a flashback within a flashback within a flashback.
Which
it starts at the end basically. And
right.
Goes back to the beginning.
Yeah, which is like, I guess if like you were super invested into this movie to be like wondering what happened to the characters, it's kind of like that's kind of like ruined.
Yeah, well, when the title's Ghosts of Mars,
yeah,
you pretty much know like what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, except for there will be no ghosts.
Wow. I don't know about that.
Speaking of which, top 10 ghost movies not about ghosts that have ghosts in the titles.
All right.
Just like this film. Ghosted. Ghost in the Shell. Ghost World. Ghosts of Mississippi. Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. Chronicles of the Ghostly Tribe. The Ghost in the Darkness. Mission Impossible. Ghost Protocol. The Ghost Rider. And Ghost Rider with Nick Cage.
He's not a ghost in that?
No, I mean, he doesn't die.
Really?
No.
Okay.
I mean, he doesn't turn into a ghost.
I don't know.
I'm like, he doesn't turn into a ghost. He is a ghost. He actually rides ghosts around. He's like, woo. So I wrote down a note that says a freight train. And it's like one of the things they say is trans marinara. And I was like, huh. Because they're using like Charlie Delta, like that kind of crap. But it's like, marinara? What the fuck? So we have
some gravy.
For our first shout out to Jason Statham here as Lee Christmas. He's playing cards, and he's literally playing the character he plays in every fucking movie.
Yeah, Jason Statham.
Yeah.
He has hair this time.
Yeah, that's true.
That makes it worth the price of admission alone. It's like seeing a unicorn.
Yeah, I got the like special edition that was like,
dude, hell yeah,
released in like Europe only or something.
Nice.
But since like there's no region lock on like most systems nowadays, I was able to watch it. But it's like from Arrow Entertainment, and it has like commentary and all this other crap. I accidentally started it with commentary, and I was just like, why is there no fucking sound? And it was like, this is John Carpenter, and with me is the luscious Natasha Henstridge, and I was like,
I've listened to that commentary because it was on the DVD originally, and it's interesting because like he pretty much like doesn't hold back and telling stories about how it was difficult to get made and like they had to keep screwing with the editing, which is why there's so much weird stuff in this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of like things in this film that are like flashbacks, and I don't know if that was in the like.
Sometimes there's a flashback to something that happened like 5 minutes ago.
Right, it's like this is an alternate thing of like an alternate path in a video game kind of thing. Right. It was like I left Jason Statham and I went to do this, and then it shows his point of view of what happens, and it's like, I mean, I felt it was kind of interesting. It was like almost kind of comic booky, but like. But
even and then there's times where like there'd be dissolves within one shot where like characters are walking and then it dissolves and then it dissolves and it's just to like, let's get things going. This is taking too long.
Yeah.
Thing. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. So
and John Carpenter admits that he's been a lifelong pot smoker in that commentary. It's like, I've enjoyed marijuana since the 70s.
He blew pot smoke into the editing machine, apparently. Speaking of drugs, the main character, Natasha Henstridge, does like a drug called Clear, and she like puts it in her mouth and like starts dissolving. Like, I don't know, it's that shit you were talking about. And then we have a shout out to Pam Grier here, who's like was really big like back in the day, but she kind of got like a revival with like being in like
Jackie Brown.
Yeah, Jackie Brown and other films with
Escape from L.A.
Yeah. Well, other films by what's his face?
Tarantino.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course this film as well. But she says, "I need you straight, Melanie. I'm as straight as they come." And then she says, "Such a shame." So Pam Grier is a lesbian in this one.
So I really like the matriarchal society touch in this.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of the coolest things because like they really like make it part of the story. Like the women totally look down on men and like treat them as inferiors and like don't take them seriously,
right?
Just like men do in the real world, in our world,
right?
And it's super just a unique touch,
right?
That I really like.
There's like a couple of times when like that's not the case, where like shit's flipped, but it's like only to do with like criminals involved. So, so like they have a character named James Desolation Williams,
dude,
which makes no sense that you would give a prisoner a fucking nickname, like the power of having a nickname of Desolation.
He's that cool. I wish Desolation Williams would have his own series. Like there should be a DCU, the Desolation Cinematic Universe.
Maybe if he took some acting lessons.
It is rough.
Him and Natasha Henstridge are fucking shit in this movie. Honestly.
I like Natasha Henstridge in this movie.
She's pretty shit.
Really?
I felt like I felt like the end lines were fucking horrible in this movie.
Yeah, maybe. But I think I think she pulls it off.
I feel for most of it, but like towards the end especially, it's like the worst shit I've ever seen. It's like, good God, dude, this is bad.
I think the worst acting is done by the main villain, but we can get into that.
Oh, that guy's not even he's not even acting.
He's a yeller.
Yeah, it's not even like a character. That's the character named Big Daddy Mars that I thought was the stupidest shit I've ever seen and heard of.
So should we get into that now? Or
we can, yeah.
So Big Daddy Mars, like, I like the idea of like the head demon.
Yeah.
He looks cool, but his voice is like so stupid sounding.
Yeah.
It's my biggest complaint about this movie. It's so like you can't take it seriously at all. It's just a guy going blah, 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 for like the entire movie.
Yeah, because they're speaking like Mars language.
Like,
but like when they're yelling and shit, you can't understand what they're saying because they're saying it in like a different language, and it just comes off as like gobbledygook.
Yeah, and it just sounds like a weird guy yelling with like false teeth or like dentures in his mouth.
No, I agree.
Like if they had replaced his voice with like a demonic sounding voice, or like Tony Todd, this movie would be 10 times better. Like it just sounds so silly.
Yeah, they should have just.
And there's so much of it.
Yeah, he's also like completely different than the rest of the people that he like is around. Like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think they were almost trying to go for like vampires thing, but it didn't work.
It's pretty
like,
silly.
Yeah. So anyway, like Pam Grier, like everybody else wears regular officers' jackets and stuff, and like she wears like a trench coat. Which
it looks cool.
I don't know if it's something of like every person that's like the chief wears that, or if it's like a specific thing.
Yeah,
it's just a note I had to write. You don't normally see a fucking. You don't normally see like all the officers wearing coats, and then for some reason the fucking chief is wearing like a fucking like battle. You know, it's like, wow. And I had a note. I wasn't exactly sure how the breathing apparatus works because they never have anything in their mouth. They just have these goggles on. So I'm not sure if that was the breathing thing or.
Yeah, because they talk about it though, and that's another cool sci-fi touch. Is like the air is almost breathable enough,
right?
And like you can get acclimated to it over time,
right?
But at first you'll
it's kind of like going up a mountain or something. It's like oxygen.
But like the newbies will have headaches for a month or something before they get acclimated. So some little sci-fi touches in there that are cool.
Yeah, and they say like put your breathers on, but they don't. No one ever does. So I don't know if that. Yeah, it was weird. I wish not like they had to really explain it. It was just kind of weird that it was like mentioned and then nothing was ever done with it. Maybe it was, and maybe it was just not explained. So Jason Statham is super persistent as a character to try to like have sex with Natasha Henstridge, and like later on in the movie she actually does give in, and then when she does, like that's when like shit starts hitting the fan again. So it's like you don't see that.
Like I wouldn't if you were the last man on Earth. Well, we're not on Earth.
Yeah, I actually have that. It's like the stupidest line in this movie. Actually, not even close. Yeah. I'll put it like this. Maybe I sleep with you over the last man on Earth, but we're not on Earth. I'm like, he's also not the last man. So what the fuck?
There's some amazing lines in this movie.
Yeah, they're amazing. This movie starts to become like Doom or like Event Horizon. It's very much like that with like the weird stuff that, like, you know, something is unleashed on Mars, and
yeah, it's like Doom, but also a Western, because it's like the town is like an old wet Wild West town.
It's a wet Wild West town.
Wet Wild West. Triple W.
A wet Wild West.
The World Wide Web.
The World Wide Web. And they're going to pick up like the prisoner and stuff, and like I actually like a little bit through this movie wrote this down, but like as cool as like Ice Cube was in this movie, like, because I would still keep everything else the same about this film except for, well, a couple other things, but like this movie would have been so much cooler if like this movie was filmed nowadays with the same plot, but the prisoner they were picking up is like an older Snake Plissken, and like it was like Escape from Earth. Because it's a cool like idea. It's just kind of like
it's a traditional like Western.
It just
like
feels very low budget, even though it's not. It kind of suffers from the same thing Vampires does, where it's like some of the stuff is awesome and it looks great, and then some of it just feels like this was made for Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah, they spent all their money like buying all the red dust to like paint the town.
Right.
Like seriously. Like, and
yeah,
it looks cool.
It's not like a hue effect they do. It's like things are like everything's red.
Right.
But it's kind of like maybe you shouldn't have done that. But it looks awesome. It's just they find an arm poking out and it falls on the floor, and Jason Statham says, "This is not making me happy." I was like, yeah, I agree. There's a first jump scare in the movie, kind of, because there's not really jump scares in this film. It's like,
yeah, usually John Carpenter will sneak one or two jump scares in his horror movies,
but they're not like too bad. Yeah. Like this one was like another one that really didn't make fucking sense at all. It was like the guy goes outside, like the two of them, Jason Statham and Natasha, and like a random dude's like, "Hey!" It was like one of their co-workers. And he's like, "I could have fucking killed you." And I'm like, okay. So this is when we get to like the Event Horizon, like Doom kind of thing. They like find out the entire place has been pretty much like slaughtered, or people have.
It takes them way too long to realize that something weird is
going on. Right.
They walk into the middle of town before they realize, like, hey, where is everyone?
Yeah, because, well, the Pam Grier, the main person's like, oh, they could be all inside, like, spending their money. And then it's like,
I doubt it.
But then, like, all the time people are away checking out the other buildings. No one ever comes running out or, like, contacting anyone else and saying, dude, I just found a shit ton of bodies. You know, it's like... So, like, they go to the drunk tank and there's a bunch of people there. And there's a lady that voluntarily locked herself up. And she got there by riding a fucking balloon.
A balloon's pretty cool.
They show that off, and it's like when she crashes it, it like does that stupid shit you were talking about where like it dissolves into another dissolve into like another dissolve. Which is weird because the whole effect, it's not like it seemed like it was fucked up. It was just like, I mean, maybe it wasn't. That's maybe why they used that effect. I don't know.
It was weird.
But it looked fine, but it was just like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then they encounter their first like person that's fucked up, and he like slits his throat. And it's like, okay. And they just kind of like leave him there because he like welded himself in.
Mm-hmm. Some good gore effects in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
It's fairly violent.
So Ice Cube finally makes his like kind of appearance. I don't know. I mean, he was, I think maybe earlier they talked to him for like 5 seconds maybe, but like
We were going to get something to eat.
He's like, they come back and he's like fucking holding one of the people hostage, and she's like, what the fuck happened here? And it's like, just all this shit goes down where like, you know, they switch prisoners, and like Natasha ends up making herself the prisoner, and then she knocks, you know, punches him, and then he's like, it's like a fucking cartoon thing. He's like, fuck you, boom, like punches the fucking camera.
Yeah.
And she like wakes up, and he like left, and then she goes to track him down into the hospital, and then like they save each other, and she gets his shotgun, and he goes, how the hell that happened? It's like a lot of, he's like
low key acting.
Yeah, low key, high, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And like we already talked about the flashbacks thing. It was one of my notes. This movie has an interesting thing. It does flashbacks, but they're quick.
Mm-hmm.
So we see that the commander that went off to go like see what was going on, like one of these like freaks or whatever, like puts her head on a pike, so she got like decapitated. It's like, how the fuck did that happen? It's like, didn't she have a gun?
Those ghosts aren't messing around.
I know, right? And this is when Jason Statham, Jericho, sees a bunch of people freaking like apocalypse style, doing all this weird stuff with like cutting people's heads off, and like you find out later the reason why they're doing this is because like people that like didn't get like, you know, weren't inhabited by these organisms like the previous inhabitants of Mars, like they were like, well, if you're not inhabited by like people we know, you're an invader, and they just like kill them.
Mm-hmm.
So and these people, for some reason, like they were the previous inhabitants of Mars, like I guess Martians, like would like in their human forms they like cut themselves and shit, but like when they show a flashback later in the movie, like they're just like frogmen. They're not like cut themselves up or anything. I'm like, I don't understand that.
Yeah. Dude, those frogs are so weird.
Yeah, I remember that being a thing when I first watched it, and it looked a little better, but like when I first remember watching it, I was like, God, this fucking looks like shit.
It's silly looking.
And then it still looks pretty bad, but it was like they showed it for a second, and I was like,
you can barely see it.
Yeah, it would be kind of interesting, but it's like they try to hide it because they knew it looked like shit. But Jason Statham brings back some survivors that he found, and they end up being friends of Ice Cube, and like fucking all pull out guns, and they're like, we're fucking in charge now. And then they do like a Looney Tunes thing where they all get like, they go to like unlock fucking Ice Cube, and they're all like, we fucking got you free. And then they're all like, the two officers run out and like lock them in the cell, and they're like, fuck. And I'm like, dude, that was like the funniest part of this whole movie. It was so stupid. I was like, what? Like I saw it coming
like,
from
whoa,
a mile
we're reunited.
Away too.
We won.
Yeah, we're all four in the cell. Yeah, I was like,
so stupid.
And then one of the dudes gets high and ends up cutting off his own fucking thumb. I was like, what the fuck is this? That was fucked up.
Yeah. One other cool touch about Jason Statham is they mentioned he's a breeder.
Yeah. I didn't say that earlier, but that was one of the first things he says is he was like, I'm a breeder, and like I want to see if I can do it, or I don't know what the fuck he said. Like,
yeah, I mean they don't really explain it, but it seems like, you know, the women like control which men can like reproduce.
Right.
So probably like only the top.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
People can become breeders. So another little touch.
You freaking breeder. Lee Christmas. So everybody's got a gun, and they're like a small army heading for the I guess like the train depot, because they're like, the train will be there. And like these freaks come out of nowhere, and they start throwing these like fucking projectiles and like saws and shit, and one of them literally kills an old man like instantly. There's a lot of heads that get cut off in this movie too, and like limbs by these saws.
Yeah, because they're throwing like blades like nonstop throughout this movie.
But it's like, even if you threw a fucking saw at somebody, like unless you were like a Superman, like it wouldn't cut their head off. But it happens.
Unless it was like the sharpest material known to man.
Right. But it's like it happens so often in this film that it's like CG-ified. It's like hilarious as fuck.
That's awesome.
That's the part that like is like comes off as like Sci-Fi Channel, but it's still funny. Let's see. So this is like one of the first big action scenes here because they get to the train and like it's not there, and Ice Cube is like, "You got a plan B?" And she's like, "Yeah, same as plan A. You got any great ideas?" "Yeah, we should do what we fucking should have done from the beginning. Kill these minor motherfuckers." And then it's like the biggest clusterfuck. It's like
he pulls out his 2 chrome Uzis and just
it's like arm
spraying.
Yeah.
I'm like,
he's shooting before he's even close enough to hit anybody. But like in the grand scheme of things, it's not even like the biggest bullshit thing in this film. But like this is the biggest. This is like LARPing. Like a bunch of random people got out and like there was no fucking plan because people in the background you see like fucking people running that aren't obviously like good guys, but they're just running past the fucking like Carpenter was like just run. So we have like all these people running and like doing all this shit. It's like all this fighting is happening, but like there's not enough people to fight all of these people and it be fair. So the people either stand back or they'll like just run in the background like there's like some shit going down. But like the fight commences with they're like you said they're shooting and they run up with melee weapons and like metal rock music starts and it's like there's unnecessary guitar shredding in like weird keys. It's like.
Did you know that Steve Vai is on the score of this movie?
Is he?
Like, yeah, I think he did the solos.
Good God.
Because like John Carpenter recruited a few like rock musicians to like heavy metal players to like do the score, and Steve Vai was one of them wailing away doing the solo from Freebird while guys are getting their heads cut off.
It was so weird. It was like, what is this?
What did you think of the score overall on this?
I thought when it wasn't like the rocking shit, it was good.
Yeah.
But like that was almost just kind of like some random shit you could get on any like garage band CD program.
It's so of its time, like the new metal.
And it's just like it's so unnecessary. Yeah. Like I mean, it fits with this movie, but it kind of ruins stuff. Like it's funny for a second, but then you're like, because these fight scenes go on for like minutes upon minutes. And
I mean,
like,
pretty much it's from this point out, it's almost nonstop killing. And
there's a couple times when it's like, there's like lulls, but it's like once the fighting starts, it goes on forever. Yeah. So they get in and they like retreat, and Ice Cube says, "Open that door," to go get his friend, and the cop that was trying to save him, all these blades go through and cut him fucking up, and his head comes off. And I was like, I don't think it was the first time that somebody's head got cut off by a blade, but it was like, dude, this looks fucking cheap as shit. But it was like funny as fuck. The last like his friends to like survive is like laying there like bleeding out, like dying, like the Native American guy, and he's like, "Where's your brother?" And he's like, "He didn't make it." And he's like, "Oh God!" And then he dies, but it's like sounds like he's having diarrhea. He's like, "Oh God." Like, so I guess this is like the leader of the freaks, were like the Big Daddy guy,
Big Daddy Mars.
Yeah. He like came out of a fucking Hot Topic or something.
Yeah.
And there's a flashback, like we were talking about, unleashing what was sealed off, which was like this thing that like all you had to do was touch it. That's like another thing that never is explained, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be. It's just in the movie. I didn't write this down. I just have this conversation between Ice Cube and Tasha Hendricks. It's just a bunch of one-liners, and it's barely a freaking conversation. Where she's like, why don't you live for something? And he's like, no reason to live if there's no reason to die, and shit like that. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like
that actually doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. just stuff like that, where it was just they were having a heart-to-heart, but it was just like bullshit. I think that's what I point to when I say that, like, just it's shit. It's like that, and then like we'll get into like the ending, and that's like mainly what I thought was like. It's like it had to have been reshot at some point, because that was like, what the fuck?
Are you talking about the final shot? Dude, that's one of the greatest final shots in cinema history.
I disagree highly, but we'll get into that later.
You know what my favorite line in the movie is?
What?
When Pam Grier literally yells, "Who goes there?" Like, I've never heard someone actually say "Who goes there."
Yeah, an old fucking time
But I love it. It's like so corny.
Jason Statham finally successfully seduces Natasha Henstridge, but it doesn't happen. She gets possessed or inhabited by like a Martian, and then like the fucking drug or whatever, like gets out of her, and they like.
What do you think of like the fact that she's like a junkie in this movie? Like, there's a lot of drug talk.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just her. There was a couple other people that like they show, but like, I mean, I don't know. I felt like as much as they like try to play it up, it honestly didn't really come into effect all that often. Yeah. Like, they tried to make it seem like she was a junkie, but like she's like out of it for like 2 scenes. It's like, it's not. I don't know. It never happens when stuff's really going down. So like, to me, it's like it could have never been in the film. Having said that, I think that like they don't really say why, but it seems like that might be the reason why she was like fine, is because Jason Statham puts like a fucking thing of her like drugs in her mouth as they like leave her to die, essentially thinking that she's possessed or whatever, and that's what kills off the ghost or whatever, or fight it. Yeah, or like kicks it out, or like because they don't specifically, or they're not like, oh, she's immune. It's like. It seems like that's the only deciding factor was like the drugs, but I don't know. It never gets explained really. So, we already talked about the CG inhabitants of Mars. So she gets rid of what was inside of her and fights off a random dude that like literally comes out of nowhere to kill her, just so she can get like his weapon and use it as a grappling hook to get over the wall. Which like they play like some random fucking music over that part too, where she's like climbing the thing and it's like do 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 do, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why?
Like, tone it down enough.
Yeah. But then there's like this epic fight as they move back through a building compartment, like through compartment, and like people would be like,
yeah, that's cool.
You know, that was pretty legit. Yeah, it
was like lines of fire, like while people were firing, the others were reloading, and then kind of like Civil War style.
They're like muskets. And then pretty much like they're leaving and they get out, but then they're like, fuck, we gotta like go back and like set off this nuclear bomb, and then maybe it'll take out the Martians.
We can't let those ghosts live.
And I was like, because they were like, we don't even know if that'll kill them. And I'm like, okay, might as well kill yourself for it then. So everybody goes back and gets killed except for Natasha Henstridge and Ice Cube, which, you know, that wasn't a shock. Everybody knew that was going to happen.
Including Robert. Did you notice Robert Carradine, like the head nerd from Revenge of the Nerds? He is terrible in this movie too. Like, he's like, I brought you your coffee, sir. 2 sugars and 2 whites, just the way you like it.
Yeah, I had a note about that, but I forgot to fucking say it. But yeah, that cracked me the fuck. Just the way you like it.
Like, you want to do another take of that?
Right. I just think of all the no-name people in this movie that get their heads cut off. Like, all the rookies, like, all just the guy that, like, the dude that, like, as they're getting on board, he's, like, trying to help them on, and then his throat just gets slit, and he's like, oh, and I'm like, why?
And you think the other rookie, like Clea DuVall or whatever, would, like, overcome her fears, but, like, nope, she just gets killed.
She was kicking ass. She was, like, ducking shit and shooting, and then, like, a bunch of random CG'd buzzers, like, buzzsaws come in and
turn her into mincemeat.
It just cuts her into a bunch of pieces, and I'm like, this is stupid. It was funny as fuck, like, but it was like, she's like, I was like, what the fuck is this?
I love it, man.
I mean, I thought it was funny, but it's definitely not.
It's just super.
Yeah, it's just
silly.
Stupid. So I guess we'll talk about the very end of this movie. She goes and she like
buckle up.
She goes and like pretty much like this whole time she's been reporting on like what happened in like the past and stuff, and she lies and it's like, oh, Desolation got away, and when I woke up like I was handcuffed or whatever, like I was asleep, like not saying that she was awake
covering
when he
for
did
him, basically.
right, and so they're like, well, that'll be all. Go get some sleep and that kind of stuff. And they were like, what are we gonna do? Tell the fucking blah blah blah, like they're like things on Mars, and they start like laughing and shit. And then it's like the end of Super Mario Brothers movie, where like fucking she wakes up and it like sets it up for a random sequel that will never happen.
Because the ghosts, it turned out, are still on Mars.
Well, it's like they weren't gonna be destroyed. It's like fucking stupid.
And they've made it to Crisis City.
So like she's sleeping and then Ice Cube comes in and says some bullshit. But they're like walking, and it's like the worst acting I've ever seen in a movie. And he goes, if you ever want to come to the other side, you made one hell of a crook. And then she's like, you'd make one hell of a cop. And then they look at each other and they're both like, nah, let's just kick some ass. And then she says one of the stupidest fucking lines, it's what we do best. And then he looks at the camera.
He looks at the camera, and then that's the end of the movie.
Yeah. And the funniest...
As they're walking out, he's like...
Yeah. And the funniest thing about this whole thing is that it's just like they deliver it with like so much like they don't give a fuck, like they're like ready for this movie to be over, like this was the end of the movie, like reshoots or something, because she's just like, it's what we do best. And I'm like,
it has the energy of like one of our home movies we made in high school.
If like we couldn't act. Well, maybe we could, I don't know, but it was just it was funny.
I always forget that he looks at the camera, and then every time I'm like, I can't believe that that's how this movie ends.
Well, the funniest part about it is because like that's inherently not a bad way to end a movie, to like set it up for a cliffhanger and stuff like that. Like, because they did that with like Escape from New York, and they've done it with Escape from LA, and like like a bunch of other stuff. In fact, I think a lot of his movies end like that, like cliffhangers like that. Yeah, The Thing, Vampires, yeah. So like. I mean, yeah, but it's
Halloween,
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like the ending was just such a shit. It was like,
let's just kick some ass.
Yeah, we know that we know that like we don't give a fuck. We know that like this sucks. We know that like this sounds stupid as fuck, but we don't give a shit.
I love it. It cracks me up.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
Did you read Roger Ebert's review?
No.
What do you think he thought of Ghosts of Mars?
I don't know. He probably hated it.
He liked it. He gave it 3 stars.
Dude, I hate that fat fuck.
He says, Ghosts of Mars is a brawny space opera, transplanting the conventions of Western cop and martial arts films to the Red Planet. And darned if in the year 2176 they're still hurling sticks of dynamite from moving trains. But he pretty much sums it up and says, Ghosts of Mars delivers on its chosen level, and I enjoyed it, which I pretty much agreed with.
Yeah, I didn't like this movie at all.
Really?
For the most part, I thought it was okay, but...
I think it's highly entertaining.
I would never watch it again.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe for the commentary.
Even for the commentary?
Maybe for the commentary, but it's John Carpenter, and that's the only reason why, but... It's got too many, like, things that I inherently find stupid. Like... And, like, I think they were funny back then and, like, cool back then. But, like, now I just find it stupid. Like the Matrix sequels, like that kind of shit, where I'm just like, I don't know. It's just, I can't put, like, my finger on it. But the whole, like, there's a difference between Snake Plissken and, like, Ice Cube's character. Like, Snake Plissken is, like, cool because he doesn't give a fuck, but, like, he can act, and like Ice Cube in this movie, like
doesn't have much of a character.
He just doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. Like his acting comes off as like, I don't care to even be here. Even if that's not the case, it just comes off like he's fucking high the whole time. So, which is a problem for me at least, because it's like, and Yeah, I don't know. I didn't. I mean, I think I'm like it was too harsh. Like I don't think Natasha Henstridge was like horrible in this film, but like there's a lot of times when she talks to like Ice Cube that like the movie itself goes way down, like as far as like the acting goes, and it's like obviously that's not like to say that everything. It's not like her fault, but like at the same time, it takes two people to act in a scene together. So, you know. I just when I watch it, I'm like, just what they're saying is shit, and it's probably just the dialogue from Carpenter, but it's like, it's what it is. It's unabashedly like a like action film, I guess, and a lot of times I'm not like down for just like mindless action films, so. There was stuff behind this that I thought was interesting. There just wasn't enough of that explored. Like, I would have liked to have seen more stuff with, like, the actual, like, original inhabitants of Mars and stuff.
I'm with you on that one. Like, if this movie is 3-4 hours long, I'd love it even more.
I actually fast-forwarded through a lot of this film, sadly. The action scenes. Mm-hmm. Because, like, I watched the first one all the way through, and I was like... Yeah. And then the second one was, like, pretty long. I watched the whole... Actually, the one I watched all the way without doing it, like, 2 times... motion where it's just like in fast forward was the one where they're like fighting their way out with like and they like light up the big guy. Mm-hmm. That was like the coolest part of this movie for me at least. I felt like they like retread a lot of ground in this film, like with like doing the things where they like do the other side, like the other point of view and stuff. I feel like this movie would have done better if like they would have not had those in, and it would have been more like The Thing, where you don't know what a character was doing during this time. You know what I mean? Because then you could have played more on like if a person was possessed or not. Mm-hmm. But more horror, less like action. But that's kind of like what this movie was and what it's always going to be. So I guess I can't fault it for that, but it's just it wasn't my super cup of tea. I'd give it probably like, I don't know, what did I give like the creature walks among us?
That was 0?
No, I gave it 1, remember, because I was like, I gave it like 2.5 stars out of 5.
Yeah, it's probably 4. I'd give it 4 out of 1.
Good God, 4 out of 1. You're giving all kinds of stars out on this podcast.
Yeah. As you know, I like almost every movie I see, so I'm an easy critic.
You're like Kevin. Yeah. You're not really a critic at all then, are you?
No.
That's why you became a ghost. So, would you say that there are movies that are worse than John Carpenter, than like that he's made then? Or
oh yeah. The only ones that I really dislike are The Ward, which is so bad I don't even want to include it.
Isn't that like isn't that like a TV thing?
It was a real movie, somehow.
Yeah, I feel like that movie's more like a TV miniseries, it feels like, because it sucks so bad.
Yeah. Village of the Damned is pretty weak.
That's based on a Stephen King book, right, or no?
I'm not sure. I think it's based off it's a remake also of a movie from the 50s, I think.
Yeah.
I'd probably put this over Vampires, but they're about on the same level.
Yeah. I'd put Vampires over this just because fucking
the James Woods factor.
James Woods, and he's actually like an actor, and like nobody in this film. Actually, that's not true. Pam Grier and Jason Statham are legit. Yeah. But
I'd put it over Escape from LA.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one for me. I might. That's the thing is, like, to me, I feel like Escape from LA is probably like my least favorite John Carpenter movie of all time, just because there's so much they could have done with it, and like it's just a retread of the first one, and like everything's worse. It's like, and they waste Bruce Campbell by putting him in makeup that you don't even know it's him. It's like, just to say he was in the film, it's like, God.
But yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah. 4 out of 5. Keeping alive. Okay, so I guess we'll move on to our next film here. So our next film that we're talking about is The Entity, which came out in 1982, and this is a 1982.
Huh?
This is a supernatural horror film directed by Sidney J. Furie and written by Frank De Felitta, who adapted his 1978 novel of the same name, which, like, the novel is based, and the film, based on the 1974 case of Doris Byther, a woman who claimed to have been repeatedly sexually assaulted by an invisible entity and who was observed by doctoral students at the University of California in Los Angeles. This film stars Barbara Hershey as a single mother. And yeah, I don't really know what the fuck I was thinking picking this film because I picked it based off that Sightings TV show. But what the fuck? This movie has like a shit ton of fucking rape in it. Like, I thought it was like one scene. So
it's like assault after assault after assault.
Yeah, so like trigger warning if you can't watch that. I mean, I would say they don't show like straight up penetration and stuff like that, but it's like still hard to watch sometimes because it's like they do some special effects in this film that are pretty, I was like blown away with.
Yeah.
So
and I didn't realize it. I didn't put it together till just now, but this is the same director as Iron Eagle.
What?
Sidney J. Furie. Yeah.
Damn.
So
he's all over the board.
Also the director of Superman 4: The Quest for Peace.
Dude, that guy's a true fucking nefarious bastard.
Yeah. So yeah.
What else is this guy directing?
Looks like a bunch of direct-to-video stuff in the 2000s.
I feel like Iron Eagle, like, even though it wasn't, felt like a directed.
Yeah. Some TV stuff. I'm not seeing a bunch of stuff that I recognize. He directed the Iron Eagle sequels.
Oh my god.
Not much, man.
Yeah. He's like, never surrender. That was a good soundtrack, though, for that movie.
Yeah.
Fuck. Dude, I'm gonna change chairs.
One Vision.
One Vision. Fucking holy shit. This chair sucks. Fucking. Go ahead and just hot dog for the crowd.
No, I want to hear the rest of that song.
I don't remember that. Also, that wasn't the version. It was like One Vision, One Vision.
Yeah, I'd never seen this movie up until recently.
I hadn't either. I was like,
I'd always heard about it, and
I heard on it.
It's a good movie, I'd say.
Yeah.
It is pretty, like,
Sorry.
this isn't like a fun movie to watch on a Friday night with a bunch of popcorn. It's like you're going to see some horrific stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for sure. It was, this was definitely like, there's definitely like more horrifying stuff in this film. Like, it's actually a more scary movie than our other film that we watched. But, yeah.
Like, I wish there would just have been a bunch of blades that like were
cutting people's ghosts off. Yeah, so they start off like pretty quick. Like, opening music is legit like dreadful. Like, something's gonna happen, but you're not sure what kind of stuff. It's like,
yeah. To me, speaking of music, like, I think that's what, like, I'll take away from this movie is like the music that happens during the assaults is like very effective.
Yeah,
because it's like super aggressive. Like, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah,
but it's like very like disturbing.
Right. Yeah, they do a good job of like pairing what's on screen with like what you hear to make like you just feel uneasy and you're just like ugh.
But then during the assaults it's like just an assault of music.
Right.
It's like
yeah.
Ah!
Right.
So
I'm like, I feel like this is not going to be fun to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be like, that was so awesome when she was assaulted over and over again.
So I guess we'll just kind of start going through it.
Well, I want to talk about,
okay,
like, what are your thoughts about ghosts in general?
I don't know.
Do you
should
believe
tell
in
me.
them?
You're a ghost, right?
Yeah, I've crossed over.
I know, right? With John Edwards crossing over. I don't know. I mean, I personally like have never experienced or seen a ghost before, but like I know people that have claimed to have experienced and seen ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I believe those people, but I just can't like say I saw a fucking ghost, you know, like. But
yeah, same. Like when we were growing up, I believed in ghosts and was scared of them because you'd hear ghost stories and stuff, and but around the time that the internet came around and you realized like there's actually, I mean, if there were real ghosts, we would know about it by now, probably, or someone would have seen something. Like there'd be some kind of evidence.
Maybe.
I mean,
it's one of those things where like, regardless, I mean, ghosts have been around for like, you know, reported for thousands of years and stuff, or maybe hundreds of years. I'm not sure, but I don't know.
It goes back to the dawn of man.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where like,
it's one of the ways to like put a face to your fears of the unknown.
But it's one of those things where it's like they've always been like the same essentially, with like people can capture them on film for the most part, and you know, so it's like, I don't know, people have like even talked about like ghosts being like not dead people, but being like beings from other dimensions that like, you know, like a fifth dimension or something that sometimes phase into our dimension and stuff. So as far as ghosts being like dead people, like I think a lot of people probably don't believe in that, but like it could just be something that like science has yet to be able to like capture or see or understand yet, as far as like the phenomena. As far as like, yeah, like if I were to fucking die and like, you know, come, you know, like would I be able to come back and fucking haunt you or like come talk to you? Like, you know, that's the thing, is like there are people that like say, oh, so and so came back to me and said that like this and that, and like, you know, fucking heaven happened or whatever, they're happy or whatever, but like it's not like we're filming it and then fucking like, you know, somebody we knew that like passed away walked into the room and it's like, hey, fucking, you know, heaven is real or hell is real, or like, you know, I saw this or I talked to this person, like that, like no one's ever recorded it. So
there's a story about Houdini told his wife, like, when I die, if there's anyone who's going to be able to come back, it's going to be me. So like,
because they're not going to be able to put me in a ghost
straitjacket. They can't hold me down. And then he never did.
Maybe he was just...
It's like so disappointing.
Maybe he was just so happy where he was.
But I used to be really scared of ghosts when I was a little kid. Like, someone told the story of, like, they saw a ghost's face in the TV. Did you ever hear that one? And I was, like, always scared I'd see a ghost face on the TV at night, like, when I was off. But... And I've you know people who've experienced stuff, but all of the ghost stories that have been told to me by people I know are, like, you were probably dreaming, and you thought, you know...
They said that to you.
I said that to them.
You were like...
But, with one exception, because my dad had an encounter, and, like, he's the least, you know, likely person to believe in that kind of stuff that I know. But he went on vacation, and they were visiting the Lizzie Borden house. And, like, there was a tour of the house, and they were coming up, the group was coming up the stairs, and he was like the last person in the line, and he felt someone grab his arm and pull it back, and like he almost fell down the stairs, but like there was no one there behind him. I was like, huh, that's
You're like, you were probably dreaming.
I was like, you're probably drunk.
And he's like, fuck.
So that one makes me think.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't ever, like, say that, like, people are lying, but I think that, like, I mean, there are so many times where I've been, like, asleep, and, like, you know, have you ever been sleeping and, like, you kind of start awake, and, like...
Sometimes it's hard to distinguish if you're really awake or not.
Right. And that's, like, the whole thing with, like, usually when you're sleeping, something happens where, like, your body is incapacitated, so you don't start fucking walking around and doing a bunch of shit while you're sleeping. And that's why people sleepwalk, because that shit fucks up and they do that. But, like, it's like that in conjunction with, like, other things that, like, when you're asleep, like, you can have sleep paralysis, which is like horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, I feel like there's that. But if you're like awake and stuff, I don't know. There's a bunch of other stuff that could happen. I feel like the most plausible thing would be like if somebody were like, if there was a bunch of people that saw a ghost or something. That's a little different. In this movie, they talk about like mass hallucinations, and like to me, it's like that's something that's like a blanket term that whenever something happens, like people are always like psychiatrists say that, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like that's a lot harder to happen than people think, but at the same time, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. I just think that like that's kind of a blanket statement. Holy fuck!
I'm out of here.
You've been laying on that couch all these years, paying me money, bitch. All I would have to say is if fucking I die, Matt, and you're still alive, bury me fucking ass up so my critics can kiss my ass.
I'll do that.
Nice.
And what would you like on your tombstone?
Pepperoni. Jeez. I feel like we're like trying to. Well, we're not avoiding the subject because you brought up that, but okay. So I guess we'll just kind of get into some of the things that happen in this movie. Like, there are things where like one. I do have some notes here that are kind of weird. Like, the kids are sleeping in bed, but they're like fully covered up above their heads with blankets, which I've never seen anybody do that. Like they're completely like it's like they're dead. I'm like, what?
We have one friend that does that.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Who?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
I don't want to out him.
But like their heads also one of their kids' heads wasn't on a pillow at all either.
Really?
And I was like, what is this shit?
What a bunch of freaks.
I know, right? 0 out of 5 stars. So she's like going through the house, turning all the lights off, and like collecting plates and stuff. And her son is out in the garage, and they're playing Saturday, Saturday, Saturday. Elton John is like playing on the radio during the garage scene, and I'm like, dude, this is legit. At first, I thought that like her son was like her boyfriend or something, because they look super close in age, because the actress and like her son are like, yeah, they just look really close in age. I think it was like she had him when she was like really young.
Mm-hmm.
So but which is weird, because there's also like a thing later on in the movie where like the psychologist is like talking to her, and then she like goes to her friend and she's like, the psychologist is fucking gross, he's sick, he's insinuating that I want to have sex with my son Billy. And I'm like, that is kind of weird, because that was like never came up in the fucking film at all. Like, it's like, yeah, there's some like big leaps of like psychiatry in this film, both like parapsychology and like, you know, psychology just in general, that like don't really like I feel like you wouldn't see the kind of psychology that's in this movie anymore, as far as like going to a psychiatrist and stuff, because like there's parts where he like yells at her and shit, and it's like, that's a little fucking weird. Like so they're like 5 minutes into this movie, and the first ghost attack happens like out of control, out of control, but like out of nowhere, and she gets slapped on the face like so hard she's like bleeding. And she gets thrown out on the bed, and the pillow is like being held on her face. But you just think it's like an attack, but like later on you find out that's like the first time she gets raped in the film. It's like, well, that's fucked up. But like then her son comes in, like looking through the house without turning any of the lights off, like super brave style, like looking for who it is with like no weapon. And I'm like, dude, I'd be like turning all the fucking lights off and like have a fucking knife and shit if like, you know, somebody I knew was like, I was just attacked, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah. And as I was watching it this time, like, this movie's over 2 hours long, and I was thinking like maybe they could have cut out a couple of the assaults, but I say no. Like, yeah, I think it's like it makes you feel like the frustration that she has, like this is never going to stop. It's just going to like the desperation.
I think if anything, like some of the stuff with the psychologist could have been cut out. Yeah, because it was like retreaded the same ground over and over again. Like the assaults were like as horrible as they were to watch. or like have them happen. Like they, like you said, they really convey like this lady is like thinks she's going insane because first she's like, you know, I was attacked, and then she's like, well, wait, was I dreaming that, or like what happened? But then like something happens later on to her, like kids that like where they witness it, and it's like, okay, well, but then they still don't think that like she's telling the truth, and like the kids were hallucinating too, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
But then there's a part now where the house like starts to shake, and she like gets all the kids together, and they like go to a friend's house and sleep, and then that's when she tells her friend that she was raped by a ghost. Well, she doesn't say by a ghost, she just says I was raped, and she's like, but there was like nobody there. And that's when like it's kind of like, because this is back before, you know, like now ghosts, everybody talks about ghosts and stuff. Well, everybody's talking about fucking ghosts, okay? But like everybody speaks of ghosts and they know what a ghost is, but like back then, like people weren't just instantly gonna be like, you know, if I was here in this room by myself and I got slapped and nobody was here, I'd be like, you know, you'd think, well, what the fuck was that? Like you would be like, was that a, you know, what was it? You probably wouldn't instantly be like a ghost, but at the same time, you would probably think after a while, like, well, if no one was here, what the fuck was that? Maybe a ghost or something. But like back then, it was like, I don't know. And then the asshole.
That did happen to me once.
You got slapped by a ghost. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No. It was weird. I was driving and I was stopped at a red light or something, and like out of nowhere, my car just like the front end shot down like someone like stepped on it, and it was really weird. It was like, did I get hit by like a microburst or something?
What?
Yeah.
Like the front of your car shot down?
It was violently like.
Oh, okay.
Like a real fat guy like jumped on the hood of my car.
And you were like,
I was like, what the
fuck? Maybe it was like a monster or something that was invisible.
It was a ghost just running over the top of my car.
I don't think these fuckers ever blast a huge load. Maybe like a giant that was invisible stepped in your hood and then was
That's
like
what it felt
repaired
like.
it. The husband is an asshole. He's like, I don't care what happened. Get her the fuck out of here. I'm like, Jesus, what an asshole. He just said that she like got raped, and he's like, get her out of here.
That is one thing that I appreciate about this movie is like a lot of times in these kind of movies the characters like don't do the smart things, and you're like, what? This is so stupid. But like I feel like she makes smart decisions. Like she pursues like every avenue she can to like figure out what's happening.
Right. She sees both like doctors and like psychologists, and then she sees like these parapsychologists later on in the film. They, you know, kind of help her out, I guess, kind of.
Yeah. Even like going to her friend's house, like.
Right.
That's what anyone would do in real life.
Right. And then they finally go home and the lights are out and they don't even turn the lights on. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? That would be like the first thing I would do. And they hear a noise, like a breathing, like, and they all run outside and the son goes under the house. And he's like, look, when I touch this pipe, it makes a sound. And the mom's like, who touched it before? I'm like, oh shit. I was like, wait, how would he know exactly that it was that pipe down there?
But it found it pretty quick.
But it was pretty fucking, like, her saying that, I was like, what the fuck? Her friend shows up and, like, she's going to stay at their house. And they both go into the bedroom to sleep. And, like, I thought something was going to happen here, but it doesn't. It happens, like, later when she's going to work, and the ghost, like, literally takes over her car and, like, drives her and crashes her.
Yeah. That's the one. That one was a little bit silly in my mind, but...
like, to me, like, this is something that, like, almost never happens in ghost things. Usually, like, locations or objects are haunted. People generally aren't haunted. It's, like... So, like, I don't know. Because, like, later on in the movie, she also gets attacked at, like, her friend's house by the ghost. So it's, like... And it also, like... Spoiler alert, fucking... At the end of this movie, nothing really gets resolved. And she moves to Texas, and the ghost follows her there, too.
I can't wait to talk about that ending.
So... But this is all based, apparently, on, like, a real thing. I'm pretty sure they just embellished the amount... Like, the you know, like, how... things happen and shit, but But yeah, she finally goes to her psychologist or a psychiatrist and tells him about what happened to her, being raped by the ghost and then getting away from the entity and almost killing her in the car. At this point in the movie, they're not thinking like anything about like a ghost. Like nobody says anything about that, and she's considering it being all in her head. And I'm assuming like it'll change due to the real nature of the haunting. And then she gets to take a bath, and we've got a shout out here to Mr. Bubble. You remember Mr. Bubble back in the day? We used to do, we used to do Mr. Bubbles. We used to have baths with Mr. Bubble. This was like an older product. I don't know if it still exists. Maybe it does.
Like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. When we would take baths together, and we were like buddy bath.
Bath boys.
Bath boys. We were like, so stupid. Or was it? But yeah, it was just, yeah, it was a good product.
Yeah,
I feel like it was more of like it felt like it was more of a detergent though. Like it was not.
It was probably like pure
skin
poison. But it made bubbles.
So she gets undressed and slips into the bathtub, and she's relaxing, and like the doors. This is what's in the trailer. She like the doors close to the bathroom, and she gets thrown all over the place and is being like held by multiple entities as like a big one is like molesting her. And she's like being pushed into like a see-through curtain, and her face is like smashed up against it. It's like, Jesus. So at this point, like the psychiatrist sees all this shit, and he's like, with the bruises and the attacks, still thinks that it, she could have done it to herself and stuff. Which, like, I could see that. It's like a lot of them were like, I think some of them were in spots where she was like, how the fuck would I be able to do that by myself and stuff? But it's still, obviously like. Who knows,
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up driving her home. They go inside, and like she kind of talks to him for a while and confesses that like when she was like young, like her like pastor or priest like dad like molested her and stuff, and then she like ran away and met up with like a guy named Mario,
played by Chris Pratt.
Yeah, and he was just like, hell yeah, I'm gonna be Chris Pratt. I'm gonna be fucking the new Mario.
It's a me, Chris Pratt.
Yeah. He's like, I can't wait to be in the next Jurassic World. It's a me fucking a ghost. So after the psychiatrist leaves, they make like a sundae, and she's like raped in front of her whole family. And it's like, and then when her son goes in to like save her, and like he gets palpatined, like fucking lightnings
like,
are like
across the room,
and he's like, ah! And I'm like, okay, so now everybody sees this shit happening. But, like, even with all these witnesses, they, like, still don't, like, believe it. And she goes into this MIDI meeting with all these people, and the fucking room is, like, covered with smoke. Everybody there is smoking.
That was so outrageous.
Yeah.
It's like...
Because nowadays, that would be unheard of.
But it seemed like a joke. Like, it seemed excessive because there's cigarettes, cigars, and pipes.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, everybody was
smoking.
smoking. Every psychologist and psychiatrist in that fucking room was smoking. Except for a few. It was like, Jesus.
And it was like the room was so smoky.
Yeah.
It's like, it almost seemed like, could this be like a parody? Like, what's happening?
Yeah,
it was so crazy.
You couldn't see shit. The only person not smoking was like the main guy. She's with her new person and can't tell him the things that that's been going on in her house, like I forget his name, but like, and then like people keep turning the lights off in the house, and I'm like, this is bullshit. So she fell asleep, and I don't know how the hell they did this with the effects, but like they do a thing where like they show like her breast being manipulated. Like someone's touching it, but it's like...
Yeah, you see like the finger indentations happening, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to find a way to like talk about this stuff without it sounding fucking weird, but there's really not any way to talk about it.
Like, it was so awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, this is cool.
I was like, fuck yeah. And she like...
I hope this never ends.
She has an orgasm and starts flipping out because like the entity did that to her. And, like, she thinks he's, like, gross. And, like, obviously she's being, like, molested and raped and stuff by this thing. And she's, like, pissed that it, like, was able to, like, pleasure her and stuff. So she, like, flipped out and stuff. And And this is when it kind of pissed me off because, like, the psychiatrist or whatever is, like, yelling at his patient trying to get something out of her. Like, the whole reason why all this is happening is because you were raped by your fucking dad when you were a little girl. And I'm like, is this how this fucking worked back in the day? What the fuck, man? This is stupid. This is fucking stupid. So she goes over to her friend's house, and this is when, like, all this shit goes down there. It's like, and they, like, witness it happen. Even though the husband is still like, look what she fucking did to the house. And, like, he's like, or she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we witnessed this happening. It's fucking stupid. It's fucking stupid. So this is when they come in contact with these parapsychologists, like the ghost people, at a bookstore. She talks to them, then they all come over to investigate stuff. And they're like, sure, lady, yeah, whatever, this is happening. And then, like, something starts shaking, and then they all get cold, and they smell something. And, like, lightning happens or something, and they're like, okay, well, we believe you. And then they have, like, 50 people show up at her house and setting up a ton of equipment and stuff. And they, like, bring all this shit on and, like, call out the ghost. And then, like, she keeps calling out the ghost. And it finally manifests itself as, like, this hypnotizing green allure or whatever. Which, like, the effect was kind of not great.
I was like, what is this, Slimer?
Yeah, it looked kind of like... It was, like, out of focus and shit. It was like, this sucks.
It's not satisfying.
Right. And then, like, the main parapsychologist lady that's, like, I guess trying to, like, get her theories proven or whatever was like, I've always believed that there are multiple planes of existence. And we only inhabit one of these. This entity must be from a different dimension. And I was like, well, I mean, that's interesting. It's kind of like, I guess, what we were talking about earlier, but... and then, like, they leave her and, like, rile all this shit up, and essentially it, like, attacks her when her boyfriend's home, and he can't do anything about it. It's, like, straight up, like, raping her again in front of him. And, like, she's like, help me! And I was like, dude, this is fucking horrifying. Like, which, I mean, I guess that's what it would be, but, like, they go to the... like, what's it called, hospital, and this is when he, like, pieces out of the movie, because, like, he's like, I can't take this shit,
yeah,
and he, like, he's like, I could stand it if she was, like, sick or had a disease, but, and, like, the psychiatrist is like, she does have a disease, and he's like, shut the fuck up, I saw the fucking ghost rape her, or whatever, and so they, like, you know, he pieces the fuck out, and we're kind of getting into the later part of this movie, but, like, there's an experiment that they do where they try to, like, isolate the ghosts by putting, like, what is this? Like, liquid,
like, dry
hydrogen or
liquid
something?
nitrogen on it, like dry ice or whatever to
and,
freeze them.
And then but, like, she's in this, like, reproduction of her house, and the only place there's, like, no camera is, like, in the bathroom for, like, her privacy. And the ghost takes control of the machine and, like, tries to spray her with liquid, like, hydrogen or nitrogen or whatever. And they eventually capture it in ice, but it breaks free. And it's, like, fucked up because it's, like, this huge mass. It's, like, giant. It's, like, a whole stadium size. And I was like, what the fuck? And it finally gets free because it's, like, super powerful, I guess. But, like, the lady says... we have a witness, isn't that right? Like, to this psychology professor. He's, like, the main professor, and she's, like, the main parapsychology professor. And he's like, well, with all what was going on down there, it could have been anything. And she's like, you son of a bitch. Because, like, she had, like, I guess, like, the proof, but he was just, like, denying he saw anything. Even though, like, both him and, like, the psychiatrist that was, like, her psychiatrist saw it, too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen in this movie. Like, it was pretty, like, bizarre.
Yeah, I feel like that was something that was totally added in this film. Like, we have to have a real ending. We can't just have, you know, this lady was continually, like, fucked with by ghosts, and then she left and went to Texas, and she was still fucked with ghosts. Like, you know, like, it's what happened, but, like, yeah, they had to, like, they added some extra bullshit that probably never happened, like, that didn't happen, like the whole gymnasium experiment thing. Because like the next scene, she goes to her house, walking around, and the stuff is gone from the house, and like the entity finally speaks, and I don't even know what it says. I couldn't understand what it said. What did it say?
I can't say it.
Oh, what's it say on the thing?
Jesus.
It says "Welcome home, C word."
Welcome home.
Yeah.
I'm like, huh?
Which makes no sense because she's leaving. Actually, it makes sense because I guess she was there, but
yeah, like when that happened, I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's so outrageous. But
yeah,
I did think they should have used that voice for Big Daddy Mars. At least it would have been scarier.
Yeah.
Welcome home. It's like, is this Tony Todd?
Would have been like 2 1/3 stars.
So what did you think of Barbara Hershey in this movie?
She was good.
Yeah, like there's trivia that, like, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but the reviews were not great for this movie when it came out, and she regretted doing it. Mm-hmm. Which, if that's true, that's pretty sad.
On the DVD, the Blu-ray, she's like, seems like she's having a great time talking about doing the movie, so I think she's fine with it. I think it was kind of like what happened to Rhodes, like Joe Pilato at the time. Mm-hmm. Everybody ripped it apart, but like over the years, it's gotten like high praise from like the actual people that matter, the fans and stuff. Because, yeah, it was pretty huge. But it's like that and The Exorcist were like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. This movie like was pretty out of control, especially for like it being based on like a purportedly real thing that happened. But like at the end of the movie, there's this text crawl where it's like very 80s or 70s. It's almost 70s feeling, but it's like, this took place in 76, but it's like, the film you have seen is a fictionalized account of a true incident which took place in Los Angeles, California in October 1976. It is considered by psychic researchers to be one of the most extraordinary cases of the history of parapsychology. The real Carla Moran is today living in Texas with her children. The attacks, though decreased in both frequency and intensity continue. Okay, that makes sense. Which is weird because like nowadays, if something was based on a true story, it would be like all over the marketing, and it would be like at the beginning of the film, not at the end. Because they would be like, oh, we have nothing to show, so this is based on a true story. Like, but yeah, I mean, I've never really looked too far into it. I just remember seeing the sightings thing, and I remember this lady was like invited to the premiere and stuff, and she went and stuff, and because she was a part, I think she was somewhat part of like, obviously her story was told and stuff, and
yeah,
the guy that like apparently like the people that like the son was pretty pissed because like they would like the people that would come in would like rile shit up and then like would leave, and then the ghost would be pissed and like create all kinds of mayhem. It's like, Jesus, dude.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the quote from the director. The director said he didn't believe the real life story, and just thought they were all a bunch of drugged out wackos. Which could be the case. You never know.
Whatever, this guy fucking directed Iron Eagle and all the sequels, so if anybody knows anything about fucking drugs, he's a dumb shit. What did Ebert have to say about this movie?
He didn't review it.
Wow. So he fucking watched Ghosts of Mars, but not this. What a dumbass.
He chose correctly.
Well, yeah. I mean, this movie is...
I agree. It's hard to really talk about it because it's such a, like, sensitive subject matter.
It's also, like, a hard movie to kind of, like, really critique because it's, like, essentially somebody's real account.
Yeah.
So...
And
not critique, but like to say like, oh, this part, all you can really do is say whether or not the movie was entertaining.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be like, oh man, you got to see the entity.
Yeah.
Like it's like, I would say that about Ghosts of Mars, but it's hard to recommend the entity just because it's like it is what it is.
And I couldn't say that about the Ghosts of Mars, but I couldn't say that about either one of these films, honestly.
Yeah, are you glad you saw it?
Yes.
Yeah. Me too.
I mean, I'm glad I saw both of these films again. I think The Entity was just kind of like, holy shit, dude. This is like... I think I thought it was also going to be like shorter because not that the length was an issue, but like the frequency and the amount of like attacks you witness in this film are like ridiculous.
Crazy,
yeah. But overall, I think it was a good Ghost Week.
Yeah. Ghost Week.
Ghost Week. What's next week? Do you know?
Slasher Week.
You sure about that?
I don't know. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you're right.
Because it's Halloween.
Gotcha.
It's Halloween.
I wanted to see if you would know. I think we kind of covered everything here because we wanted to talk about ghost encounters and all kinds of stuff like that and supernatural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any like most haunted locations you've heard about? What?
I was just thinking of that Ghost Adventure show.
I feel like we bring that up on every podcast, but I guess it would be a disservice if we didn't at least talk about it a little bit here on the Ghost Week. But if anybody doesn't know, Zach Baggins has the Ghost Adventures, and we've seen 2 episodes together for like not completely all the way through, but enough to be like the first one we watched was. It was like an actual ghost show, but it was just kind of stupid because it was at a clown hotel. We were just kind of like, it's a clown hotel. Who the fuck would want to stay there? But it was like, it's supposed to be haunted. But then like a month ago, we went to a convention, I think, right? And we turned on the TV and fucking lo and behold, Ghost Adventures was playing again. And this time they were not at a clown hotel. They were at a fucking carnival.
A carnival fun house.
Yeah, a haunted house. And apparently they had like this like Dr. Demento fucking dude with him that had like a fucking goatee and all this other shit. And they were like, there are fucking spirits are nigh and they're here. And I was like, and we like didn't say anything for a minute because we were like thinking, oh, like, you know, this is like just an act. They're doing like a stage thing, like, you know, like actors come out for a haunted, you know, ghost thing for like a carnival thing, and it's like fake. But like they were saying that like the rides themselves were haunted, and we were like, what? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Writing on the wall are ancient symbols.
Right.
No, dude, a carny painted that like a year ago.
Yeah, it was like so new. There was no way that like there could be anything haunted there. That like a carnival is moved from place to place, so it's like, what? It was just so ludicrous. We were like cracking up because we were like, this is so stupid.
Yeah, I think probably like the most haunted, not haunted, but like spookiest place I've been is the cemetery by the cabin.
Oh yeah.
Just like a, you know, totally overgrown cemetery out in the middle of the woods that's very old.
So what we're saying is next year what we're going to do is we're going to get like a 500 long mile foot land cable and run it all the way out there and do the fucking podcast there at night.
I'm in.
Fuck.
See you next year.
Shit. We probably won't be doing that. So next week on the 23rd, or as I put here, the 20th, 23th, is Slasher Week.
23rd?
Yeah. And we are going to be talking about, essentially, it's Slasher Week, but we should just call this Halloween Week because we're doing Halloween 3, the only one to
Season
not
of the Witch.
star Michael Myers, and Halloween Kills, the newest Michael Myers film that's coming out, I think,
November 24th.
This weekend?
Yeah.
So that we could have time to watch it and shit. Time to watch it. And then shit our pants! Because it's going to be so scary. So Halloween Kills is a sequel to...
Halloween.
Yeah.
The third remake.
Yeah.
Or second remake.
But it's not really a remake because it's a sequel to the first film, right? So it's Halloween. Halloween... Is that what it's called? Halloween? Mm-hmm. So it's Halloween, then Halloween Kills.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then they're doing a third one eventually, I think.
They should have called it Halloween 2-2. Because that's the second Halloween 2. Halloween 2-2.
So, and then we're just going to talk about the slasher genre, I guess, in general as well. So,
cool.
You have anything else to say for yourself, sir?
I think we nailed it. Perfect podcast in the books.
Yeah, in the pocket.
Corner pocket.
Yep. Prison wallet. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.